We're going to go ahead and get started for the rest of the afternoon. And so the rest of the afternoon, we really wanted this to be, oh yeah, Mike, I'm ready to be going. Forgot. I should have known with all these cameras, lights anyway. So the rest of the afternoon, we're going to be exploring different partnerships, and we're hoping that these will just become more resources for you to go back to the family, or maybe even you know about the resources. Like for me yesterday, I knew about the resources. I just didn't know about all the resources within that resource. And so I got a lot of excellent information from that. So I'm going to start this off, and I'm going to pass it over to Dickie Wilson to talk about family support services and waiver supplements.
Thank you, Martha. Where's the clicker? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I presume that most of you in here know about family support services. You've heard of it. You probably make referrals, tell people about it all the time. But I wanted to just make sure that we covered it for the purpose of this audience, and especially as it relates to the assistive technology, to make sure that we are leveraging family support as an appropriate resource. Just a little bit about me. I've been at TFL-BHDD about a year and a half, maybe a year and 8 months, something like that. But pretty much my entire career has definitely been spent in DD services, and the majority of that, probably about 14, 15, 16, in family support specifically. So family support is something I'm really passionate about. I think it's one of the best services that we offer at TFL-BHDD, and I want more people to know about it and more people to use it. So what is family support? Family support is a support service that is a state-funded program that is really important right here. It's a non-entitlement program. Those are real important words, completely different from the waiver. The waiver is an entitlement program. Family support is not. So what that means is that a person can come into family support and they can leave family support. Where typically once a person gets a waiver, it's for life unless they move out of state or they, for whatever reason, opt out of the waiver. But the good thing about family support is that it's sort of like a brokerage service. So family support is a direct financial service that allows for the purchase of goods and services on behalf of the individual and their family. So why is family support important? This is really sort of key to me in the fact that family support is there to help maintain the family unit. And for all of us as DD service providers, our goal is to keep individuals with their families and in their communities, living a life just like all of us want, just like the AMAC vision or mission statement of living, working, playing in your community. And that's what family support is here to do. It's help to ensure that that family is cohesive and stays together and has the things that they need to support the individual in their very own home. So who's eligible for family support? I should have done this as a quiz. So obviously Georgia residents. It's a state-funded program thanks to Georgia taxpayers like all of us. It's for individuals who are ages 3 and up. So usually early intervention services, babies can't wait. We'll serve the kids up until 3, and it typically takes until about 3 to get that definitive diagnosis before they can go into family support. The individual has to live at home with the family. Remember, we just said that it was important, family support, the goal is to keep the family together, so it has to be an individual living at home with the family. And they have to have a diagnosis of IDD, including autism. So these are some of the most common diagnoses we see in family support. It is important to mention that the waiver eligibility is much more stringent and restrictive than family support. Family support has a broader definition of eligibility. We don't look as much at adaptive functioning as the waiver does, so it's more inclusive. So we recognize that there are people that might not meet waiver eligibility, still have some developmental disabilities, and still need some supports. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. So who is not eligible for family support? Individuals who have the now comp waiver. That was a big cleanup for any of you that have been here for a while to get those now comp people out of family support a couple years ago, but I think we've finally done it. Children in foster care, that's considered duplicative services. If they're in foster care, then DFACS is responsible for their services, even if they're disability related. And then those who are living in an inpatient facility, such as a nursing home, a community living arrangement, all those kinds of things, because again, remember, it's for individuals who are living in the community with their family. So how do individuals apply for family support? There's really two ways. They could be, the family could apply directly themselves to the provider agency. They might be at a parent-to-parent community forum where Christy talks about family support, and then they find their family support provider on our website and they print out the application and they turn it in on their own. Or it could be a referral from one of you, or it could be from one of our sister agencies with Department of Education or Division of Aging. So it's not like the waiver services where they have to come in through our I&E department and the field offices. It's a little bit different. So how to apply? Like I just said, you can get the application. There's really just two forms. It's the family support application, the family support service agreement, and then you just have to submit the supporting documentation of the diagnosis. Again, it's not like the waiver eligibility. It can be an IEP, it could be a psychological, it could be just a medical record that denotes what type of diagnosis the individual has. Then typically that should all be turned into the local provider, family support services. We've got a network of about 36 providers across the state that are contracted with TFL-BHDD to provide family support. There's a complete list on the website. It's slightly a little not accurate. I'm working with provider enrollment right now to get the updated list. But anyway, so you can fill that, the family can fill that out, you guys can help them fill it out, and then it goes through the provider back to the field office, where the field office verifies eligibility, or in essence, makes sure that all the documents are there. So the services, as I mentioned, are delivered through family support provider agencies, and like I said, we've got about 36, 37 of those all over the state that serve different counties, which is kind of based on their own internal either territory or service area. For example, in Region 6, we don't have anybody from Region 6 here, do we? For example, in Region 6, the majority, or really all the family support providers there are CSBs, where in other regions you have a variety of CSBs and nonprofits. So the family support agency should have a staff person called a family support coordinator who will work with the families, help them get the applications through the approval process, and then develop an IFSP, or an individualized family support plan, like the IEP, to determine, what the service needs are and start kind of the ball rolling with getting services coordinated and arranged on behalf of that individual or family. Yes, you're welcome. So what goods and services are covered? These are some services that we don't necessarily see listed in our policy for goods and services under family support, but they are critical functions to the family support coordinators at those provider agencies. They should be providing information and referral information. So for example, when we meet with family support providers, I'm going to try to start incorporating the ADRC folks and maybe parent to parent, so making sure that they're having, access to resources so that they can make those referrals too. And then again, helping identify needs, and it's not always needs that they can write a check for. It might be some other kind of need. Maybe it's the need of the caregiver themselves, and maybe they need to coordinate with aging to make sure that grandma who's raising an 8-year-old with autism is getting the support she needs. So then they should also be providing advocacy to obtain needed services or benefits. And what I mean by this is that these family support coordinators should be having interaction with these individuals to a level of where they know when the circumstances change. And so when those circumstances change, they should be able to elevate it to the field office to let them know, hey, this family was stable, we were able to maintain them in family support, but now we probably need to go ahead and get the I&E team out and do an evaluation to see if they're going to be eligible for the waiver. Now, this doesn't always happen. Um, one of the things about family support is that we have 36 providers, and they're all separate entities and organizations, so they still have some autonomy as to how they administer the program, and that's a goal that I'm working to address right now. But the basic goods and services, these are the most common that families and individuals receive under family support is respite care, community living supports, community access, and supported employment. And I'm going to stop right there and talk about those two for a moment. The problem is if somebody needs any of those 4 services, they're not going to get very much under our current model for family support, because the cap, as we see down here, is $3,000 per year. So we're talking about, you know, yeah, a little bit of respite, maybe a month of one of these services, if we're lucky. I don't know, Byron, maybe we can stretch supported employment a little bit further. But that's another thing that we're working on for family support that I hope that we'll be rolling out in July, is that we're going to have a more meaningful tool for assessment for each individual that will help determine what that individual and family's needs are, and will help craft the IFSP, or Individualized Family Support Plan, and drive the services. Yes, ma'am.
In Region 3, we were told that respite is going to be moved into family support. We have several providers in Region 3. One of the providers keeps saying, we don't do respite. And they're referring people back to another agency that had respite in their pot of money.
Okay.
So I think there needs to be some clarity in Region 3, because I've got families that need respite. The one company had money, the other company didn't, and now they're saying that the parents have to fill out another application, and it's a big problem for my families. And so I need to know, is respite in family support, and does that agency need to understand that, or what? They don't seem to know that they provide the service.
Well, as I just mentioned, there's a lot of differences in how providers do it. Obviously, at this point, I can't mandate a provider to offer respite just because respite is an allowable family support service. Just like I can't mandate them to offer supported employment. We're working to change that.
They were all supposed to offer the same things, because if they offer different things, then we need a code that says this one offers this one offers this, and this one offers this, so that we can offer our families what they need.
Currently, right now, they can pick and choose what they want to provide.
Okay, well, and we need to know that, because we don't.
Right. Well, I mean, that's part of knowing your local providers, which is why we're having this conversation right now, because they're all different. And it's not to say, the issue is that Agency A may not have staff and may not have the organizational structure to offer respite or CLS, but they're a family support provider. Agency B may have that infrastructure to do that. So they're a family support provider and they offer CLS and they offer respite. But if they're both family support providers, Agency A can pay Agency B to deliver the CLS and the respite on behalf of the people that they're serving. So they can still offer it, they're just not providing the direct service. Does that make sense? Yes. And respite is also currently under construction. I feel like we need to just walk around with those signs on our forehead. Melanie, you were there in some of the discussions last year about respite with Mary Price, and that's something that we're working on to change. There is respite under family support. There's obviously respite under Medicaid, and then we had that little gray area of state-funded respite, where agencies had contracts for respite, and that might be what you're referring to, a separate contract for respite.
I used to have, for my son, I had GCSS, I had pot of family support money, and I had a pot of respite.
Mm-hmm.
The way I understood it during our PLA meetings was it was being somehow merged.
Yes.
And so we're just confused, and I want to tell my family so much.
Right. Yeah. So because let me think of a way to say this. What was happening was the respite contracts were supposed to be reserved for state-funded individuals. You know who those people are. And really and truly, it's a small number of people in our state. Providers who had those contracts were supposed to get referrals from our field office for state-funded individuals to access respite. That wasn't happening. So providers had a system, a network to deliver the service, but they didn't really have referrals coming from us, so they started filling the beds, the slots, however you want to say it, on their own, sometimes using family support individuals, maybe as waiver individuals, whoever, and billing that to the contract. It's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. So the idea of the respite restructure was that Medicaid folks will use Medicaid, state-funded folks will use state-funded dollars, like on their ISPs, just like any other service, and then family support folks will use family support. So the rate should be the same at all three, so the providers can still offer the service in whatever modality that looks like, and it really doesn't matter about the funding source. We've kind of gotten a little bit bogged down in the process, which, how ironic that a state agency can't figure out a process. But that's what we're working on, is what does that process need to look like? How do we separate the different people coming in and keep up with who's billing what? And then, you know, there needs to be further conversation with the providers too, because it is going to a fee-for-service model, and a lot of them are very concerned about that because that's not how it's been in the past.
Could we get your emails so that we could ask questions?
Sure.
How to, like, I've got a state-funded guide because parents desperate, or family desperately wants
Mhm.
respite and they can't figure out how to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be at the end of this PowerPoint. So back to family support services, we have specialized medical supplies. That's a really big one. That's probably the most common family support service that we offer. That's really your incontinence supplies, your wipes, your pull-ups, your chucks, all that kind of stuff. And then social recreational activities is probably second, and that's really big for our population of children that we're serving, to pay for those summer camps, those activities that are regularly occurring. We get the question a lot about, well, I had this the other day. Mom got really mad at me. Her daughter likes basketball a lot. And so her daughter likes to go to the Macon University basketball games. So she wanted family support to pay for her season tickets. Well, that's entertainment. I mean, I want season tickets to the Falcons, but nobody's knocking on my door to buy them. So we had to have that conversation that it's supposed to be regularly occurring. So if the daughter wants to go to the Y and join a ladies basketball league where she's going to learn the sport and she's going to make friends and she's going to develop natural supports, we can pay for that. We can't pay for season tickets. We can't pay for Six Flags tickets, things like that. We get those questions a lot. And some people make some really good arguments, believe me, but there is a distinction. And then we have dental, vision, and medical care. And then lastly, I want to talk about environmental modifications and vehicle adaptations as it relates to assistive technology. I know as you guys are making referrals to this, that might be a service that the family really needs. And I just want you to keep in mind that it might be fine. They might need both. They might need some assistive technology, and they might need their bathroom modified so that they can use the technology. But you can still make the referral for AT services to Tools for Life. But remember that family support is a resource for environmental modifications. And these are the two categories that you can exceed the $3,000 for these two, pending the provider has funding. I see you looking at me, Melanie. And go up to $7,000. Well, I'll keep my comments to myself. Yes. And I didn't mention, I told the group yesterday, we also have this lovely other category in family support. So if somebody needs something other than what's specifically listed, there is a process by which the family support coordinator can request the other, write a justification, send it to the RSA for approval, and possibly get the other approved. Same thing for families that may potentially need more than $3,000. It's not a rule of thumb at the moment, but sometimes we do have families that they just have a situation, they need more. The provider has the money in their budget to cover it, and so they're allowed to get more with RSA approval. So these are just some things that are quick facts about family support. The thing I love about it is that it's family oriented, and it's pretty responsive and reflexive, pretty quick to get services as opposed to the waiver. It's provider driven, it's community based, and it's really should be needs based. We're not quite there yet. That's what we're working on with the new assessment tool. And it's the payer of last resort. So that's something that the provider agencies have to be watching for. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about family support today, because it is a resource that you can leverage for your individuals, but it's also, just keep in mind that if there's another resource that is available, then we have to exhaust that first. So if you want more information about family support, there's an actual page on TFL-BHDD that's dedicated to family support, and you can go there. You can also call me or contact me via email. I'll be glad to talk about family support all day until you're tired of talking about it. But one thing that I wanted to mention to you before I leave family support is that you guys are really critical to family support. In a perfect world, everybody on the planning list would be in family support. But we know that only about 18% of people on the planning list are actually in family support. I'm not placing any blame. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that statistic, because technically they are sort of the first priority group of people. And so I think there's a couple reasons why that's not happening. And I think part of it is that families, number one, are fearful that if they get into family support, that their level of priority of need is going to be perceived as being lower, and so they're not going to get the waiver as quickly. And then also, I think that they don't see it as the meaningful big dollar services. You know, they want the $60,000 comp waiver that's going to pay for lots of CLS and supported employment and residential and all those things, and certainly family support can't do all of that. But we, Byron and Heather and I, are working on a plan to move family support forward that will have a very individualized, person-centered, family-oriented assessment to try to crosswalk it to services and try to make these family support services more meaningful, so that it's not just $3,000 kind of picking and choosing. Yes, ma'am.
Just one comment, it can be, most families do like family support and choose to use it. Some of the barriers have been having providers and having providers to offer some of the services that families
Right.
want. So being able to pick and choose and say, well, I really need respite, but if I can't get respite, then I'll just do it for SMS.
Right.
I won't use it while I'm being paid. But the community access piece where folks, it was the original thought from some providers when they said it's not much time. So when that provider sat down and broke it out and offered it to that family, it was very helpful and they wanted that.
Right.
So it's just a matter of sometimes of the providers and the family and the field kind of thinking creatively about
Absolutely.
how you use the family support.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And you have done very well with that. Thank you. Any other questions about family support? There's a test at the end of this, by the way. Kidding. Yay, got a family support champion. Okay, we're also going to talk really quickly about waiver supplemental services. Are you guys familiar with that? Okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, when waiver supplemental services rolled out, I didn't know that it would necessarily be an appropriate topic for PLAs, but since some of you are moving toward getting people into services, I thought it'd be worth you knowing about. So waiver supplemental services is not family support, but it's kind of like family support for people who have waivers, now and comp. So these are going to be individuals who have the waiver, who have additional needs over and above what the waiver can pay for, being able to access some additional services, goods and services. So we're using the family support model in the sense that right now it's allowing up to $3,000 per individual per year. Even those who participant direct are eligible to get it as long as it's not something that they can get under their individual goods and services category. And just like family support, it's payer of last resort. And if it's something that the individual can get through an exceptional rate request or additional services, request for additional services process, they can't get it through waiver supplemental. So these are examples. The primary services that we offer under waiver supplemental is dental. We all know that our adults struggle to find dental care and to pay for dental care. So I was really excited that this was available. Then also medical care, vision services, and then we have that wonderful, lovely gray other. An example of other. Tammy will probably get a chuckle out of this. So we have a family that's participant directing, and child is about 12. He has Down syndrome, very low communication, verbal skills, but he is a runner. He has eloped numerous times. Mom wanted the little bracelet tracking device for him. At first, she submitted it under the waiver, individual goods and services. It's clearly not covered there, and so we offered her an alternative and said, we agree he needs this for his health and safety, which is the purpose of waiver supplemental. So we're going to purchase this under waiver supplemental services so that you don't commit Medicaid fraud by buying something that is not covered in that category. So that's an example of an other and where we would use other. So for waiver supplemental, the primary point of referral is the support coordinator. Other community providers have made some referrals. We may have had some field office staff make referrals, which I'm fine with, if whoever can identify the need. We just haven't opened it up for families to do it. And there's a couple of reasons, but primarily it's a pot of money that we're now in the second year of the contract. I don't know what the department's pleasure is going to be as far as once the money's gone. I hope that they'll renew it because it is a valuable service, but I don't know that they will. So we're trying to be good stewards of the dollars and make sure that we're meeting the most prevalent needs and not just opening it up for everything. So the support coordinator would make a referral. It's a one-page document, which I'll show you in a minute, to the provider agency program coordinator. In both of these agencies, there's two in the state, and they both are also, the staff people are also family support coordinators, so they understand this process. So basically, they get that request, they get the supporting documentation, the invoice from the dentist, whatever it is, and they make arrangements to pay for it. It's pretty simple. And then the field office only comes in unless, I don't have this on here, but if you guys ran across somebody and wanted to make a referral, you could, if they need to exceed the $3,000 or they need to go to that other category, just like the process for family support, then the RSA would approve those. This is the referral form. It's really simple. In fact, the referral form that you're filling out for the AT project was fashioned after this, so it's real simple. And these are the two agencies and the contact people for waiver supplemental. So if you're in regions 1, 2, and 3, Carrie Hobbs at Highland Rivers, or region 4, 5, and 6, Ty Stanfield at Pineland. Yes. And I'm going to skip this because I'm not going to steal Cheryl's thunder about the ADRC. Because you did such a good... You drove all the way down here. Yes. But you can use the slides, though, if you want to. So, questions, feedback, comments? I love presenting right after everybody eats lunch. It's fun. It's fun.
Well, I think we're free because I think we'll have to leave us in a little bit. So ask 3 questions that you have.
guess
Just
that's,
keep them four around.
oh, it's not going anywhere. It's just, as long as I have anything to do with it.
I just learned about this from someone calling. What happened to the intensive care?
Intensive family support.
Intensive family support.
So that was a pilot project. We had 2 providers. We had a north and a south. The goal where we're trying to take family support is that all individuals, all providers will have the ability to be intensive family support providers. It all hinges on this assessment tool that we're building. So once the assessment is done, if the individual has selected respite, CLS, those kinds of things, or the assessment indicates these are the services that they need, they're automatically going to have to go into what we've been calling intensive, because it's going to kind of be based on the category, just like now when comp is divided based on the amount. So it's not that intensive doesn't exist. Intensive, okay, so they just don't have a separate contract. It was an AP contract, which means that accounts payable. So the reporting process for intensive was very, very different from the reporting process for regular family support. So basically, the conversation was, we still want you to meet people's needs to the level that you feel you need to. However, if somebody needs an other service or more than $3,000, we want you to follow the protocol that's already in the family support policy rather than just making an internal judgment call and sending me a bill at the end of the month where services are already promised, possibly delivered, and we have to pay for it without a check and balance. So the contract went away. And what we said was we will monitor the spending on a monthly and quarterly basis, and if the utilization is high, then we will put money into the contract to compensate for whatever those services, those additional services are. So we're still kind of testing it a little bit, but it just wasn't working quite as it was designed. We needed a little more oversight of it. So if you have somebody that has intensive level needs, they can technically still get that.
But what we learned, what we realized is everything is, it's always natural to family support. And as a process, we family support will determine whether it's more or.
Yeah, right. And so my goal would be that family support would become the front door. Cheryl's going to talk a little bit about the no wrong door. I think of family support as the front door to DD services. You should come in, eligibility is broad, it's pretty easy to get in, and then those assessments are done that are objective and won't be based on how much money a provider thinks that they want to allocate you. And it's really based on what your needs are, and it will move you through the year. And so next year, when that assessment is done again, or if there's a change in the circumstances, the assessment can be redone. Your services might decrease or they might increase based on what you need, because it is cyclical, you know, and families go through life that changes and evolves, you know. So my hope would then also be that it would help the family support coordinators be better able to predict somebody who is in serious need for a waiver and elevate that person to the RSA's attention or INE's attention and say, hey, you know, we've already spent $10,000 this year on this family. Dad left, mom broke her back, you know, whatever the case is, they need some help and can really advocate for that. So it's a whole, I mean, it's a big ship. It's a lot of moving parts. We have the vision. It's just getting the leadership buy-in and getting the resources that we need in place, because another thing that we're working on, which is why I actually have to leave early today, is trying to have an IT system for family support. Right now, there's no good system We don't really fit into CIS. We put our billing into WIS, but I can't see IFSPs. I can't see contract reports. I can't see all the different things I need to see to be able to effectively monitor and evaluate the program and make the changes necessary with what we have. So I'm having a conference call when I leave here to talk about those IT solutions for family support. So hopefully there will be changes and improvements coming to family support. It's still a great service, but like anything else, it's got room for improvement. So, anything else? Right, okay.
Thank you. If y'all think of anything before Nikki and Tammy leaves, we'll open it up for questions right after them too. So thank you so much. Now I'm going to pass it over to you, Miss Tammy. It's on the table. Oh, right there. By the pumpkin. All right, here you go.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tammy Watkins. I'm the Participant Direction Manager for the state. I just want to tell you guys a little bit about participant direction, because when the individuals come to you, they're coming in new to the waiver. We have some who want to come straight in and self-direct. So when they come to you, they don't know anything most times about the waiver, let alone about self-directing a waiver. So it's very important that you guys give them some information, a little bit of information that they need to know. So with participant direction is a way to take charge of your waiver. Participant direction, to some, they believe it's you can do whatever you want in the waiver, but that's not the truth. With participant direction, what it means is that you can take charge of your waiver by deciding who you employ, what vendors provide your services, and how much you pay for those services and how much you pay those employees. That's what participant direction is. A representative, everyone who self-directs or participant directs needs a representative. A representative can be someone that the individual elects. It can be the individual. It can be a parent. It can be someone who's not related to that individual, but they have to have a representative. That representative must be capable of representing themselves. They must be capable of completing the duties that they have to, the responsibilities that they have with participant direction, which could include attending the training, signing the MOU, submitting payroll and documentation to the fiscal agent. They have to be able to calculate the funding for the year and stay within funding for the year. So they have to do all of those things. The representative also needs to attend the ISP meeting. That's very important. A lot of times I see ISPs and I see no representative even attended the ISP meeting. And then the representative will complain and say that they didn't know what was in the ISP. The representative has to be present during the ISP meeting. Getting started with participant direction, before you get started, they have to enroll with a fiscal agent, but first they have to start with training. Training is mandatory prior to enrolling in self-direction. And that training is offered on quarterly months. January, April, July, and October, the training is offered. So every quarterly month it's offered, and it's announced on the website the month prior to the training. So, like for instance now, we have trainings that's coming up in October. In September, they'll be on the website so that people can go on the website and enroll or register for those trainings, okay? We don't offer webinars for those trainings. It's an in-person training. We only offer webinars on an as-needed basis if someone is incapable of physically attending the training, okay? But for the most part, those trainings are offered in every region of the state, plus Macon. We consider Macon a separate region for some reason because it's right in the middle of the state. But so we offer it 7 times or 8 times, actually, 8 times each quarter, all right? After they attend the training, they sign the MOU, then they enroll with their fiscal agent. They can't enroll with their fiscal agent prior to training because they have to have the training they have to have that certificate of attendance from the training in order to enroll with their fiscal agent. There's 4 fiscal agents in the state of Georgia. It's not just Acumen anymore. So a lot of people think it's just Acumen. We actually have 4 now. So we have 4 active fiscal agents in the state. We also ask you to tell them about community guide services. So like I said, with community guide services, community guide, a lot of the people come into the waiver, they don't know much about the waiver, they definitely don't know much about participant direction. A community guide is someone who can help them with that process, help them along the way. And community guide can be paid. With a representative cannot be paid for their services, but a community guide can assist that representative and be paid to provide that assistance, okay? When you're completing their ISP, everything that's written into the ISP has to be based on assessed need. So they have to have that assessment for services. Once they have that assessment and you're writing the services in the ISP, we just ask that you clarify what they're going to use the services for. So for instance, if they have SMS and individual goods and services, those are the main ones. If they have those 2 services, we want to know about what they're going to receive, what they're going to use that funding for. So they've been assessed and approved for that service, but what are they using the service for? And you also want to confirm that the fiscal agent actually accepted them. Because a lot of times they go, well, I'm going to go with Acumen, and they tell you that, and you put it on the ISP. Acumen gets a PA, and they go, we don't know who this person is, but they're asking us to pay their staff. Okay, so just confirm with the fiscal agent. They'll find out a lot about what their roles and responsibilities are in the training, but you want to remind them that it's very important that they document when they start self-direction, because documentation is required for 5 years, so they have to have that documentation. Emergency plans and safety plans, you guys have to write that into the ISP, but they have to tell you that information to write. Okay, so your emergency plan is who is their emergency backup? If they hire 1 staff and that 1 staff quits, or that 1 staff can't come in for the day, who's going to provide services to that individual in that employee's place? Safety plans is basically a what-if plan. What if the individual has a seizure? What should that staff member do? What if the mom is at work and the individual and the staff is at the home, but a storm hits? And what are some things that staff may need to know about that home while she's there providing services if there's a storm? Or something, it doesn't have to include everything under the sun, but it should include things that pertain to the individual and that staff as they're working together. And like I said, this you write in the ISP, but the family gives you that information. Family hires are allowed under participant direction, so they can hire family members to work for them, but there's a process. The process is written in the manual, but it starts with you guys. So if they come to you when you're doing their ISP, they say they already know they want to hire a family member, they have to go through the process first, and it starts with the application. So the family hire has an application. You get the application, you give them the application, they fill it out, give it back to you, you submit it to your regional coordinator, okay? And then they'll finish out the process. You look confused. Question on that? No?
That was only allowed if they couldn't find another provider.
They have to meet extenuating circumstances, yes, so they have to go through the whole process, but you just give them the application. Mm-hmm. And the coordinator will go through all of that with them, asking for documentation, so on and so forth. When you participant direct, there's 18 services that you can self-direct. These are the 18 services. They recently removed nursing. Nursing is not allowed anymore. So these are your 18 services that you can self-direct. All right, so that's it for me. Any questions? No? Yeah.
I had a lady call me out in the community, and she's wanting more money from the waiver because she can't find staff. She's a self-directing mother. And my advice to her was I said, you're not finding staff means that you are failing at self-direct.
You can say that, I can say that.
I was talking to her as a parent, not as a DBHDD employee. People don't know where I work. But I just said to her, you know, I said, you're showing that you're not able to self-direct. This is not necessarily that you need more money. You have not been able to find staff for a year. This means that you probably need to hire an agency to find you staff. And she did not like what I had to say to her. People frequently don't like when I am Wendy, the mother, telling them what they have to hear. But I'm basically assuming if she can't find staff, she's not doing it properly.
Well, part of the responsibility is finding your own staff, finding your own vendors. And the answer is not more money. Just because you have more money doesn't mean you can find staff. So part of that is the responsibility. And if you don't meet those responsibilities, you can be terminated from participant direction.
Right.
So I would advise that either she try something new or she choose a traditional provider.
And that's kind of what I told her as a mom. It's like she doesn't really know where I work, but she's just complaining, I can't find any staff, and I don't know what to do, and I need to call those people about more money. And I'm like, I don't think more money is going to solve your problems.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, because, a lot of calls that come through the Aging and Disability Resource AAA's, if it's needed, they're referred to us. There's a parent called, that's up there probably about 5 or 6 years. She grew into being 5. She didn't know that how this process worked. She contacted, well, eventually got to me, but she contacted us to find out, can we give her a list of potential employers to assist her on a transition so that she'll have services for her child when she gets.
Yeah, and that's not how it works. When you participant direct, there's no assistance with potential employees. Even if you're moving to another city or another county or whatever the case may be, there's no list out there. We don't give lists for anything because we can't suggest to you, oh, maybe you should hire her. And then she, not saying she's a thief, she comes in and steal everything out your house. Then you're gonna say, well, DBHDD told me to hire her and I'm suing DBHDD. So we can't suggest to you anyone for any purposes.
That was my response. I was like, why didn't she know that she was doing this for several years in another region? Or, and I said to her, you should have had somebody assisting you with transition. That your support coordinator there should have been communicating back and forth with the region. You know, so I just didn't understand why she didn't know that.
I don't know. I could tell 1,000 people, 100 people sitting in one room that the sky is blue today, and it's amazing what comes back to me, what color that sky was, that I said it was. So I don't know.
My parents are coming out. I've done several of these this year, and they're coming out and they told me, I saw my ISP and I didn't have any goals written down, and they said I have to have goals. And I said, ma'am, you have to ask for the ISP when it's finished. My parents don't seem to know that they need to keep a book. I'm telling them they need to make a book, you need to do this. Do you have an example of that? I'm like, ma'am, I'm not in charge of this, you're in charge of it. And they want to self-direct because everybody in North Fulton self-directs. And their friends
It's the end thing. Yeah.
but the thing
We're
is,
cool.
they call me and want me to produce a book for them, and they want me to produce the whole production. Well, can I copy yours? I'm like, ma'am, I don't have this. Maybe you can Google it. I don't know. But
We
you
do
know,
have a workbook for self-directing that we posted on our website. It's just suggestions, a guideline that they can use. We are in the process and contracting with GCDD. I said S. GCDD. We are contracting with GCDD to update that book. But for right now, that is what we have available, and it's just examples. It's a guideline for
I
that.
didn't even know what to tell her because she just, called me and wanted me to produce all this stuff for her. And I said, ma'am, you went to a meeting and you were supposed to pay attention in your meeting, and you're supposed to have all that stuff together. And, well, I don't know what I heard. And
I
I'm
like
like,
Wendy. I'm bringing Wendy with me to a meeting. So. Yeah, I
and
get it.
I'm participant directing when my waiver hits, and I'm going to have to make my book up too. So, it's like, I'm going to make my book too, but, I'm not going to tell Sally Sue and North Fulton what she will put in hers.
Yeah, so we do have that workbook on the website.
That's great.
so they can use that as a guideline, but it's not, we have to make sure we tell them it's not a requirement, that's not what we require. So, because if there's something that's in that book, it's a suggestion. So if it's something that's not in that book that they need to have, they can't come back and say, well, we told them that this is all they needed.
Right, I explained that she needed a job description and she needed all about her kid and what she wanted done and the procedures. And, you know, I said, you've got to make that job up. That's not
Yes.
the PLA's job.
Yeah.
I can add one thing, stuff has been directed, and exactly what you're saying. I think when you talk to families about it, it really is like a money business.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
And if you are prepared to keep up with time, payroll, policies, backup plans, coordination, hiring of staff, and hiring staff is hard even when you're a provider. I was a provider for a long time. That's we have a whole other conversation about the shortage of DSCs in our nation. So those are the challenges and those are the struggles that they need to be prepared to deal with, because it really is a business model. And if you're not, we have people that, God bless Tammy, she goes around everywhere, every quarter, doing month-long trainings all over the place, and still have to go to some little small area and meet somebody because they can't get to the training and they don't have internet for the training. It's like, how are you going to submit your time sheets and do these things if you don't have access? Obviously, we don't want to prohibit somebody, but it does raise some questions because it really, you're talking about Medicaid, so it really is pretty, it really is very serious, and people need to take it serious and know what they're doing. And there's all kinds of training materials available, and so it's a personal responsibility. But I often think the lure of directing your services, just like what Tammy said, what they think that it means versus what it really means, outweighs the work and responsibilities. So.
Yeah, a lot of people come to participant direction because either, like you said, their friend is doing it, or they think they can do whatever it is that they want, and that's just not true. And like I said, very important is the emergency backup plan, like you said, because it is running a business. And what we find is a lot of people don't have emergency backup plans. It's not written in the ISP. They hire one staff to work 60 hours a week, and when that one staff either burns out, takes a day off, or quits, then there's no one, and they place them in emergency respite, and they're there until whenever, or the individual doesn't receive services. Okay.
And I talked to them about the fact that you don't want to get audited. If you get audited and you don't have, like, I found a lady on my list that had been keeping up with her goals for 2 years. And I said, what's
It's required.
going to happen to you if you get audited? I said, what are you going to say to the state? Are you prepared to pay the state back $120,000? You don't want that.
Yeah, so that's very important for you guys just to give them that little bit of information in the beginning, or you can send them to our website, our web page for participant direction, and it gives them a brief summary of information that they need to know about participant direction. When they come to the training, I give them from start to finish what they have to do. Some people after training go, I'm not doing this. And then some people say, okay, I want to do this. So as long as we give them enough information in the beginning, they should be able to make a good decision. Okay? Any other questions? All right.
One of the things that some of the circumstances that come up is that if it's, they have to wait for the training and do the service. So then you kind of have to talk about when you have to get the training, or the traditional. So those are some of the things that we have to have. And then sometimes we do choose to wait. Again, it brings the question of the urgency of the service.
So I say the same thing to support coordinators as well as PLAs. When you're talking to your families, you should give them, should be discussing that previously, and should know if they want to self-direct, because if it happens in a quarterly month, it's only quarterly because it's just me. I can't just travel I can't travel any more than what I'm traveling. But it's only offered on quarterly months, but it is mandatory. So if they decide, let's say January 28th, that they want to self-direct February 1st, that's just not going to happen. They have to wait until April, okay?
When we were following rules regularly, we could kind of know whether they were leaning toward it. So we could kind of gauge that. If they were their waiver, it's going to come here, and it's going to training. But things may be moving to where if we're not, that's when they that person, they get to a list, and they become in need, and they want to participate in rec. It's
And like Nikki said, I'm not unreasonable. So I do travel to people. I meet in a local place, so we have to meet somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to anyone's house, but we do meet, and I do provide those out-of-cycle trainings for those who are in need, the most in need. But I'm not just going to do it every time somebody comes up on the list here.
so even though that was something to consider, when we are talking folks, and we're talking about when it's happening, and it's kind of happening that we're working on okay. But it's just something that I think about sometimes. What happens when we're ready to go, or almost ready to go, we have to do the training. So to know that we can talk about that, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's it. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Before Tammy and Nikki head out, any other questions for them? Great. Thank you guys so much. Are y'all learning something new? Or did I lose y'all?